Alright, so this is my POW 16. Alright, so the first graph I made was people who ate breakfast at home, and their minimums were 1. For their first quartile was 2.4, their median was 3, their third quartile was 3.6, the maximum was 4, and the outliers were 1 and 1.1. And that was their GPAs. Then I did people who didn't have breakfast at all, and I took their GPAs and I put it in a box and whiskers, and their minimums were 1. First quartile was 2, their median was 2.4, the third quartile was 2.85, the maximum was 3, and the outlier was 1. Next, I did people who ate breakfast at school. Their minimums were 1, their first quartiles were 2, their median was 2.7, quartile 3 was 3.175, their maximum was 3.3, and there were no outliers. Then I did my 5 comparisons, and this is what they were. Both people who ate breakfast at home and who didn't have breakfast at all had no outliers. Then number 2, the difference between people who ate breakfast at school and those who ate breakfast at home is 0.3. The difference in medians between people who had breakfast and those who ate breakfast at home, the difference was 0.6. The graph of people that ate breakfast at home is the only plot which reaches a maximum of 4. So that means that that's the only graph where the GPA reaches 4.0. Then number 4, people who ate breakfast at school and at home both had their third quartile higher than 3. Sadly, those who didn't have breakfast at all, their third quartile did not exceed 3. Then I had my final comparison. In the plots, those who did not have breakfast had the smallest maximum number, and those who had breakfast at home had the highest maximums. Somehow, those who did not have breakfast and had breakfast at home had the same minimums. Alright. Next, I did the boys' height. Their minimum was 50. Their first quartile was 60.25. Their median was 64.5. Their third quartile was 67. Their maximum was 72, and their outlier was 50. Then I did the girls' heights, and their minimum was 48. Their first quartile was 60. Their median was 61. Third quartile was 64. Maximum was 68, and an outlier of 48. Here's the graph. Next, I went on to do the fourth part, or the third part. Girls' test passed. So that's the number of tests they passed. The minimum was 1. The first quartile was 18. Their median was 21.5. The third quartile was 23. The maximum was 25. And the outliers were 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. Alright. And I did boys, and their tests passed. Alright. Minimum was 2. The first quartile was 7.5. The median was 17. The third quartile was 23. The maximum was 25. And there were no outliers. Alright, and I had to make 3 comparisons, so here they are. The first one, the difference between the girls' median and the boys' median is 4.5. The boys had a much higher IQR, so the boys had a higher range, which seemed to cause for the boys not to have any outliers. The data was so spread out that an outlier for the boys would have to be negative 16. Both boys and girls ended up with the same maximum and the same third quartile. But what caused for such a big difference in the IQRs was the first quartile. The difference between the boys and the girls' first quartiles was 10.5. And I would like to thank aluka.com, imaths.com, and shoulder.com for all my graphs and all my comparisons. Thank you very much.